Uncharted is the newest, most anticipated video game adaptation turned to film currently in this time period. With that being said, I must say Hollywood is actually doing a pretty damn good job for video game adaptation turned into films. Now, they already had a really, really low set bar because they usually just make crap video game adaptations, but I would say, like, the last one I watched was Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, and while it wasn't good by any means, it was so much better and so much more accurate to the video games than all of the Mila Jovovich and her husband's films that they made, all of the like 7 or 8 Resident Evils. They were awful, and Welcome to Raccoon City was a lot better than those, but I wouldn't say that it was great. It was a step forward into how to make video game adaptations. So now we get Uncharted, which Uncharted, the film, is, I would say, very loosely based on the Uncharted 4 story, with some elements sprinkled throughout it based around all of the game series, the stories and the plotting. And with that being said, we have for a casting Tom Holland, who plays Nathan Drake, which I think he fit the part. Just looks alone at the very least. He fit the part, I firmly believe. We had Mark Wahlberg, who played Victor Sullivan, and ever since I found out that casting choice for Sully, I wasn't enthused at all. I don't think he looks anything like Sully. And Mark Wahlberg, I don't have anything against him. I think he's an okay actor, but he's not versatile. He doesn't really act anything outside of tough guy. Now, with that being said, in this film, he has a lot of character lines and character dialogue, and they work very well meshed with conversations with Tom Holland's Nathan Drake. And I think not just their chemistry, but I believe every actor, actress, and the characters that they're portraying, I think the chemistry works extremely well for everybody involved in this film. No matter who's talking to who, I think there was an immense amount of chemistry all across the board. Even if it were Nathan Drake speaking to the big bad, or they even had scenes whenever Nathan Drake would be getting his butt kicked by one of the villain's goons, and they would sprinkle in some funny character dialogue, but not just with Nathan Drake. It would go along with the bad guy that's beating him up, turning it into a comedic element within a fight scene. And those kind of moments, and then other character moments just all throughout this film, those scenes made this film 100%. The characters and the character journeys made this film. Now, the Uncharted game series always had an excellent balance between characters and adventure, and they had the adventure part in the film of Uncharted, obviously. That's what the story and the film is based around. And it's not a terrible adventure or story or anything. It's an Uncharted adventure story. Although, being the 5th iteration, I would say, 5th, 6th, whatever it is, in the Uncharted series, game and film, whatever, I would say that the adventure story just kind of gets set on the back burner in the film in substitution for a lot of character moments with a lot of sprinkled in character dialogue and character to character dialogue. And that's not a bad thing at all. Like I said, the character dialogue and the conversations made this film. And they turned their characters into real life, as if you're sitting there and actually watching real life Nathan Drake and Sully and everybody just kind of bantering back and forth. And that's what I did love about this film. The adventure part, it was Uncharted. I think the game's adventures and journeys and puzzles were a lot more methodically thought out. But for a Hollywood film, it's a lot better than the crap they usually distribute to us. And speaking of crap from Hollywood, there is not a single shred of wokeism in this film. Sure, there are the likes of big bad black girls. I don't mean like big as in, I mean like big bad bads. But with that being said though, at the same time, they actually had history with their character. They had depth. They weren't just in there. Like an example would be No Time to Die. There's a black female agent that kind of competes with James Bond, and I like that aspect, but everything outside of that, her dialogue lines, her action points, all of it was just based around empowered black female. In Uncharted, you get, I'll just say an empowered black female. The difference is that she actually had history to her character. She had depth. She wasn't just a one note, just there because. And the name is Braddock, and you know a lot about Braddock. And so I would say that there are a lot of good things in this Uncharted film, which is very unusual because usually I can only find like one good thing in a video game adaptation film. That's not to say that this doesn't have flaws. This has some pretty big flaws, mainly being gravity, physics, just complete deficit of logic entirely. Just you have to just basically turn your entire brain off because, and don't get me wrong, I would say the first 80-85% of the film works with the story and the characters because it's Uncharted. But then you get into the third act, and I thought, okay, they've already outdone themselves. You can't really have, any more groundbreaking, illogical scenes. Well, they proved me wrong. Third act is just illogical garbage. And it wasn't entertaining. I understand what they were going for. They were going for a big, bad, epic third act. It didn't pay off. It wasn't very good. It wasn't entertaining. I sat there just waiting for it to just kind of wrap up because the best scenes already happened in this film. Then we get the third act, and it's a behemoth of a third act, but it's just kind of unnecessary. It kind of feels tonally shifted. Like you have a vast majority of the film being nothing but character-to-character scenes and big moments for characters, and then they just kind of scrap that away in favor of just explosions and bad logic. And everybody knows the airplane scene because it's in every single trailer, every single TV spot, every single advertisement. Okay, they ripped it from Uncharted 3 where Nathan Drake is hanging off of cargo from an airplane, and that's fine. They recreated that scene well. Problem I had was when he gets back in the airplane and a car hits him back into the air. That's fine. It shows him tumbling down with the car, holding on to it, but then there's about a 15-second lingering scene at the very end of that scene where the car is still in the air, dropping from the middle of the air. And on the hood, he's literally just standing up, not attached to anything, just standing up. That alone is an excellent example of my point of view for the defying logic in this film. And that's really the only great example I can give you. The rest you'll just have to watch and laugh at. So, I believe I covered all of the bad things too. I didn't really care for Mark Wahlberg's casting of Sully, but I will say he did an excellent job with the lines that he was given, but the written lines that he was given basically carried his job in this film, because the character dialogue is just so well written. The banter is back and forth around everybody. The dialogue is just so well written that I would say it was really hard for any actor and actress to screw anything up when it came to their characters, because every character was so well written and the banter was so well written. And a lot of the banter was really funny. Some of it was very on the nose, a bit too on the nose, but, very seldom did that happen. So, Mark Wahlberg and just third act, gravity, logic, physics, none of that's there at all. Now, right before the third act, I was honestly settling on an 8. And then the third act happened. And I was just like, well, this just kind of screwed the movie. So this is not a terrible film at all. And I'm glad. I am glad I went to a theater, watched a video game adaptation, and wasn't angry or frustrated or sad. I was actually relieved, happy, and overall entertained and excited for the future now. Not just with Uncharted, but other video game adaptations turned to film. Because I think that Hollywood is actually going through the right track now with adapting these source materials. So overall for me, I would still say the Uncharted film is a 7 out of 10. Thank you.